Hello everyone and welcome to Avantika Designeering Series or ADS as we like to call it. Every week on Wednesday, we feature design and technology leaders who share their professional journey, their thoughts on their domain of work, and designeering where the world of design and engineering meet. Make sure you follow us on social media Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And with that, let's continue with your show.
We have learned to love technology in such a way that it has become an inevitable part of our daily life. As much as we think about the cons of it, we cannot help but just go without interacting with it in a day. In the end, technology has always been a savior and has helped us to do monotonous tasks in a simpler and efficient manner. How can we not live without it? How did we come about this devotion towards technology? Over the years, tech enthusiasts have worked towards making our interaction with technology an effortless element for us. And today we have with us a person who has brought the best elements from the world of engineering to the people, added with a pinch of design, making himself a true designer. Tejas Vyas. He works with BigBasket as the head of product, growth, and design. He comes from a background of computer science where he has mastered the art of writing code. With the meticulous eye for details while developing a product, his mind for strong analytics have always given a result of the perfect blend of design and engineering. Knowing this, we thought of learning about his take on delivering innovation at the doorstep. So, hi Tejas, welcome to Avantika Designeering series. Thank you so much for joining us on our show.
Thank you so much, Rohit, for calling me over. It's a pleasure here to be interacting with everyone. I look forward to this great conversation for the next 30 minutes or so.
Great. So, Tejas, before we kickstart our conversation on technology, design, and other aspects, recently I was reading Hari Menon's post on Twitter that you also reshared about challenges that Big Basket has been facing with the issues of slots and refunds. We wanted to know how it is to function inside a company, Big Basket, in such unforeseen circumstances that keep shifting.
Right. We are the market leader in online grocery, and one of the reasons we have been a leader all over the years, I would say 7 8 years, has been the primary reason has been we have been way ahead of the curve in our innovation, in the way we design solutions. Our supply chains have been primed to be probably the best in the industry. At least that's what the numbers show internally. So we have always been agile in that manner, and we keep trying to innovate at all points in time, and that is something which is ingrained in the way we work in our culture. So when this huge disruption happened sometime in March, we were also caught off balance, but we were able to scale to say 20 to 30% of the unforeseen demand that just came through in the early days. Happened after that was completely unprecedented for us. Well, two things: the huge demand surge versus losing a lot of manpower due to the lockdown put us in a very tough spot. And our leadership stepped in, and we brought in a huge amount of agility in the way we function post that. Um, we already were doing that, as I mentioned before, but it needed a lot of depth for every problem that we had to solve for, and we had to do that in a matter of hours and days. So, while we are attuned to doing working in that particular way, it did take us to the very next level of agility and speed. But I'm glad that we have been able to solve all the problems that most of our customers faced in most of our cities. In fact, there's a better slot availability for most of our customers, and we are still improving and ramping up our capacity. So great learning times for us, Rohit.
So, Tejas, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate all Big Basket rock stars for delivering groceries during the lockdown situation. In fact, kudos to all of you for helping your customers and everyone receive groceries in these challenging times. So thank you for that.
Yes, you rightly highlighted the rock stars who are out there, delivering stuff, picking stuff. Also, the rock stars are not just the front face in terms of the deliveries; they are also the pickers and the stackers in our warehouses who have to still do this on a everyday basis despite the uncertain times. Completely agree with you. I think more than me or anyone, I think. All credit goes to them. They stood up to the occasion, and we are very thankful to them. We are where we are today primarily because of them.
So Tejas, one of the things that you mentioned while you were talking about the current situation was agility in the current landscape. So my question is, how do you keep your product functioning, design happening for such a flexible and agile landscape?
Uh, so let me break our the way we function into three parts. Primarily, we start off with the core design side of the whole solutioning. In how we break it up in the why, the what, and the how. Every problem that comes through, we first try to understand the why, and the why has to be framed in the most concise, the most precise manner. This is the whole design part, I would say, to understand the core problem and get to the bottom of it at scale or at any problem that you foresee or you hear at any point in time. There is lack of clarity in the real problem at hand, and it takes a lot of questioning to get there. It takes a lot of understanding to reach to the bottom of the problem. We use the word, let's get to the bottom of it. It all derives from that. So, to understand the problem and to understand the data points in that problem is the core why. Once we understand the why, we move to the solution approaches in what we call the what of the problem. And at this stage in time, the lesser talked about in terms of the execution, the better, because at this point in time, we look at the best solution that could evolve. Typically, there are two to three solutions which are effective solutions, I would call out, that stand out uh, in the what, and then picking the one which stands out as the best one, looking at various constraints, various pros and cons, is the next step. Picking that one and then evolving to the how is the execution piece of the whole design process, the whole process. Now, uh, when we take the why, the what, and the how together and completely compress into hours or days, not more than a week, I would say, that is where the agility comes in. If you look at organizations at scale, what typically happens is just getting to the why takes weeks, getting to the what takes another month, and then the how takes maybe 4 months, 5 months. Now, what we are trying to do is getting the why and the what and compress it into say you're talking of hours or days, and then really get into an effective solutioning of the problem in the how and driving that at a breakneck speed. That is my definition of agility, Rohit. Hope if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer on this front.
So I'm sure that in ensuring that your product keeps functioning, you all have been working round the clock from home. But from the big basket journey, I want to first step into your story. So from TCS to launching the first Indian browser to being an entrepreneur, and now here at Big Basket, how did you land into this Big Basket? Share your professional journey with us.
Uh, the Thanks for the question, Rohit. So let me just start off. Say maybe from the time I graduated from my engineering, and I always wanted to, in a sense, always get into something which gives me a sense of comfort, something impactful and purposeful, something of purpose, something where I could learn on the job. So I wanted to get into academics. I got into I got into a PhD program for that matter, and then that translated into me doing a thesis in masters and kind of coming back to start off in India. And when I came into India, I started off with the TCS. I had to pay off some bank loans for my previous education for my masters. Since then, I've been looking to this was 2005. Since then, I was looking to get into a startup, and sometime around 2007, I found someone who shared my vision of starting up. He was an American entrepreneur looking to build some fantastic consumer internet products, and we started uh, into this journey together. I was more the technical. I was playing more of the technical side of the entire startup. It was called Hidden Reflex, and that's when the journey started. It's been great. We built two products, building an Indian browser, which was called Epic Browser. We launched it around 2009, 2010. Also launched a news aggregator, and you have a few news aggregators in the market today. So one learning from that, and as always, we failed at these two products, and great. There were a lot of learnings in this journey. First, I took the failure. I internalized it. It was part of it, and the learning was in the form of ensuring that your product always fits with the market. Everyone would have heard the term of product market fit. So we failed at that. We were too early in the journey at times, and also there were times when we actually developed a good product, but we did not have the funding attached to it. So this is part and parcel of a regular startup. So at some point, when the product did not get enough traction, I was back in the market trying to look for the next big impact or purpose where I could add value. I took a sabbatical and went on a trek and travel and got my mind, got my head sorted. It was a good self. It was a great phase for self discovery. And then BigBasket happened. While I was on doing some freelancing with a few companies. BigBasket was just starting up, and I met the founders, and I really, I really liked the way they interacted with me, and I think their vision. I internalized that vision. It was great talking to them in that very small office in Indiranagar in Bangalore, and that's when the journey started. I've been one of the early employees there, and since then it's been a great journey. I'm still, as I would say, an entrepreneur within BigBasket. It's been a fantastic journey, Rohit.
That's exciting. Having been an entrepreneur in past myself, I can relate to some of the things that you mentioned and the challenges that entrepreneurs face. In fact, Tejas, while researching about you, I came across an interesting point. That you also mentioned somewhere, which was that as a project as a product manager, you have to don many hats, that of a scientist, a strategist, an artist, a salesperson. Uh, my point is that how do you think this alienates the sense of clarity towards your thoughts? I mean, how do you manage to make decisions having so many possible conflicting personalities within you?
Uh, Very tough question, but let me answer that, Rohit. Uh, uh, so what I look at it as a racehorse. A racehorse has a single-minded focus to hit the goal, and it's up straight up ahead, and it is an absolute focus and vision towards getting to the goal. But there are a lot of hurdles along the path and on the way. Each of these hurdles are manifested in the form of constraints that or problems or problem statements that could come from a business side, from a strategist side, from a technology side. As long as one's focus is towards the goal and vision, I see them as accelerators or something adding to the core clarity of the whole problem solutioning, and yet trying to hit the goal that one should be undeterred towards. Absolute single focused vision, aggregating a lot of these areas of focus and getting into a clear zone where you can solve for each of these hats, where you can don each of these hats and yet achieve the goal. I don't know if I was as clear, but that's the analogy that I put myself under in, without any without losing the sense of focus and the goal. Looking at the goal, it will become incredibly hard.
I'm sure that that's quite some juggling at your end. In fact, Tejas, the other thing that I also discovered about you, that you've been recommended and celebrated for your strong analytical skills. Technically, you've been very sound. But where did this angle of design actually enter into your career?
So I would incorporate. I would call that as an incorporation of the understanding of the why, Rohit. For me, design falls under a broad gamut of looking at a problem, understanding the problem statement, and solving it, looking at all the facets that get attached to it. And this manifests itself in the form of looking at, uh, at a business problem, at a user experience problem, at a technology problem, understanding human behaviors at each and every stage. So aggregating all of these is what I put under the a rectangle or a box called design, and that's my definition. So, and that is what I think is the real why. Once we are able to understand and aggregate all of this, uh, it automatically gets incorporated as part of as part of what we call product management. So I would actually put product design all as part under the same umbrella. That's how I would look at it, Rohit.
So while you mentioned this stages, one of the other interesting elements is that there's a myth that product manager is nothing but an extension of a user experience designer. Do you think this myth, or there is any kind of truth surrounding this entire thing?
Good question. I would say the user experience aspect of what we call product management is a very key part of facet to the whole umbrella. And if you look at it, a design always evolves looking at how a user is behaving, and that's an interface to the whole problem. If you break it up, there is a human interacting with the system, and the way you design the interface is paramount. What happens beneath the hood is also, in a way, a design. It's not necessarily a user experience design, but it's the algorithm aspect of it. And then there is the whole technology chugging underneath in trying to solve it and optimize it with all these deep netted queues and databases and servers underneath. So if you look at this whole problem, a user experience is a very, very key part of this whole problem solution. And the product manager essentially dons the business hat. He also dons a user experience hat and all these other hats at the same point in time, trying to aggregate these. So yes and no. Product manager is an extension of a user experience designer, but a product manager is also an extension of a salesperson, a technology person, and so on and so forth.
In fact, Tejas, in all your answers that you've been sharing, one very interesting element that you've been bringing in consistently is asking why. And that's where I thought of this next question, that I see a lot of young designers who tend to move towards solutioning at times. I mean, the minute they receive a project, they move towards creating solutions, creating answers. How important do you think is to identify the problem itself and then move upward in the process?
This question is very important for young listeners, and my response to them, and this is one of my biggest learning, Rohit, in my career. Let me even explain that my earlier startup, I used to be one of those guys who would just hear a problem and start quickly solutioning it out and even coding it out and getting it out live. And my learning through my entire life and through my startups and my entire journey has been that what happens a lot of times is you build something, you invest a lot of effort into the solutioning it, and when you later realize that the problem that you're trying to solve is actually not the one that you solved for, it's actually something else. and all that effort, all that time that was spent thinking has effectively gone for a zero. For zero, there's no output out of that. So my humble request to all the listeners and the younger generation is to actually spend some quality amount of time trying to understand and actually jot it down. The more you write down the problem statement in a crisp three bullet, I call it the two pager methodology, which means uh, you should be able to effectively enunciate the problem in two bullets, and that should fit within a small window which can be taken as a screenshot, right? So you effectively should be able to write your problem statement in two sentences, clearly explaining the problem. And this problem, reaching to this level of clarity of the why, will need a lot of deeper understanding with the help of data, with with the help of numbers, trying to do a much deeper analysis to get to that. So only then you'll be able to solve the problem that you actually started off. Getting into the solution is actually, in my view, a waste of time, because you will realize and you will learn in your career that what you will build is not what the users actually asked for. It needs a lot of understanding the problem, a lot of going and asking your customers, asking your users to get the real why.
I think that's a very thoughtful, answer. I was, in fact, going to ask you how do you avoid it, and you very beautifully laid that down. So my other question from understanding these solutioning and getting in depth of problem, one of the other observation, especially in the current short term future, we expect digital transformation to be a very big imperative for all organization. But do you think digital transformation is about talent and not technology?
Let me first answer the term transformation. The way I look at it is, I'll always break it up into what we call a fixed transformation approach and a growth transformation approach. The older world, where things should be the way they should be, is what I call the fixed transformation, and any adaptability to change becomes an inherent problem. The growth transformation is something that you solution it, you think you transform yourself, but at the same time you're open to feedback, you keep adapting and evolving. After you gather feedback, there is a feedback loop always. And in my view, when you enable anything digital, the digital world is moving at such a rapid clip that there is no scope for fixed transformation in this world. You are always going to be working in a growth transformation model. And going back to your question, when you talked about talent, if a person comes with a very fixed mindset, wherein it becomes extremely hard for one to open up and change, it becomes very, very hard. One needs to adopt a growth mindset to be able to keep learning, keep adapting, and this is very, very imperative, very, very important in the digital age. So as more and more organizations move towards digital transformation, digital where everything associated with technology becomes part of the way we operate, one has to keep adapting and evolving, else one will be left behind the race. And this all boils down to a mindset. So the talent which will always stand out in the digital economy will be the ones who keep evolving and keep adapting to the technological changes.
So while we keep talking about the business evolving, especially with e-commerce flying in the current time and expected to fly in coming few years also, do you think it will take a very different height with artificial intelligence, augmented reality, letting you see the product and other exciting developments that would be happening? How do you think the online world will complement the offline world? In fact, Tejas, has always been the debate that courtesy the online world, there's been a lot of hampering of business at the offline end. What's your view? Is it, are they going to be two different worlds, or are they going to be worlds that will complement each other?
Rohit, the world is moving at a very fast clip, and in my view, we are moving towards an age where more and more people are going to be interacting a lot more digitally. We have seen these that behavior over the years. It gets plateaued at points in time when certain constraints affect the ecosystem in terms of that movement, and for example, availability of internet, and these are all market economics. The more widespread data is across the economy, the more people latch on to their smartphones and start consuming content, start using that for their daily purpose, for their daily essentials. More and more people are just going to go more and more digital. They are going to order online. So the world is definitely headed, I would say, a lot more online. But to answer your question, there we will see an age where you will be able to still avail a lot of these services offline. When you say offline, it is the way that they're operating, but augmented in a lot of ways using cloud technologies or personalization. For example, you will be able to enter a physical store where where the merchant would know who you are, what your past behavior is, and what products you like. And the merchant would be able to offer far better personalized services in a matter of minutes. That's the world I envision. So your experiences will continue to evolve. As a consumer, you could sit in the comfort of your home and just using your fingertips order for anything that you want in this world, be it any service or any product. Or even if you go out and with your family and visit a physical store as we see it today, the experience is only going to get a lot better, where you will be offered personalized virtual services, which doesn't exist today. And that is the world where I see, this is where the online offline, these nomenclatures that we use today, this will all merge, because ultimately everything would be over a cloud system, and everything is going to be hyper personalized, as they say.
So, with all of this happening, what's the next significant disruption that one can expect in the coming times, especially in the e commerce industry?
The e-commerce industry, Rohit, is going to be moving towards, in two ways. And also, considering the current COVID situation, we have a new normal. So bringing this at this point in time, and the second, the safety part of it is something that is going to change the way how most e-commerce companies operate. Everyone is going to expect a home delivery at least for the next year or so, and in the safest manner possible. A lot of startups are going to be mushrooming in this space, in the ability to provide safer solutions for customers. Most e-commerce companies will adapt and evolve to be able to give a huge safety cover for their deliveries. And secondly, speed is always continue will always continue to be the key for most consumers. A typical delivery, which wherein a customer would have had to wait for, say, a week or so, is now looked at in a matter of minutes. You have the food aggregators, you have the big baskets of the world, who have now moved to the 2 to 3 hour delivery window. We even have a product called BB Instant, where you have a vending machine and you can just pick up items at the drop of a hat, and all this using your mobile phone. So my perspective and view here is the world. Most of the e-commerce industries are going to be moving towards a lot of safer solutions for the consumers and a lot of quicker solutions for the customers.
So, Tejas, one last question on the technology bit, is that I've seen most of the techies working towards productization of their services. What's your view on this?
So, Rohit, today's services are looked upon as a commodity. You could go out to any solution provider who could who could solution it out, have a fixed project attached to it, turnkey project, and then you deliver the service, right? The world is definitely moving towards building, getting into a platforms approach where a lot of these services ultimately formulate into a key platform build up, which can ultimately be flexibly used with a bit of customization across different vendors. That is where the world is headed towards, and some of the key this is where some of the key leaders in the world of technology, like the Googles, the Microsoft, the Amazons, they have built a platform. And when you build a platform, you achieve market leadership, because then you are able to quickly customize, build SaaS products, build products to be able to provide for any level of service. Uh, that will continue to ensure that these players continue to have leadership, and this is where the industry is also headed, Rohit.
That's a great point of view. In fact, taking a cue from here, while I see, Tejas, that both the world of design and technology are completely different. However, they have to come together if you want to create a successful product. At Avantika University, we coined a term called as designeering, which talks about the combination of design and engineering come together. How do you think these two thoughts can converge on one page?
Rohit, I think what you guys are doing is essentially the way a lot of thinking should go into how products need to evolve, and this is looking at the future. Ultimately, a design in silo will only take us to, say, a particular point in time. When you look at an end-to-end product, and when you merge pieces of technology, when you merge a business problem, and when you merge design, that is what is needed for us to add value to the entire ecosystem. Take any problem for that matter, any problem solution for that matter, it involves three key areas. It needs design, and when I say design, it looks at human behaviors and understanding how these interfaces are made, and the whole solutioning aspect. It needs a technology intervention on how ultimately your algorithms operate underneath to be able to deliver that whole experience effectively. Ultimately, these two are converging to solve a business problem. And when you take all these three together, you get something which is fantastic. That is the value add that the entire ecosystem needs. That is the value add that finally gets us to build fantastic products for the future. That is something which I spoke about at some point on the growth side of it. One needs to keep evolving these three to keep improving and keep pioneering, keep adding to the innovation and build fantastic products. Rohit.
And from there, in your experience, what do you think millennials or Gen Z fall short on? What do you think that they need to do if they need to stay on top of the curve?
My learning suggests that as long as you are very curious, you're very inquisitive, life does not stop at just looking and what I would say rote learning, and just what you have as part of your curriculum. I think it's very, very important to keep asking 100 questions, to be curious, to keep breaching barriers on understanding the real why. Keep learning new things as you go on in your daily life. Question everything. Question, why is this built the way this is? How can I improve it? Uh, Take every facet of how the world is built and question, and that is the right way. That is how you will add value. That is how you build up your skill sets, ultimately to be a great value add and create real purpose and impact to your whole career. That's what will help us get fantastic talent which India currently needs today.
Absolutely. I think that's really well put up by you. So, Tejas, we are towards the end of our show. And before we end our show, we always do this a quickie takeaway segment called as Gyan Vyan. So, what we're going to do is we're going to toss few questions to you, and we would want you to share your top of the mind, answers to the same. So, are you ready to do this, Tejas?
All up for it, Rohit. Shoot.
Okay, great. So, if you could represent the abstract term passion as a product, what would that look like?
Big basket.
Okay, and what is one technology or design event around the world that you think is a must attend for any and everyone?
I Comic Con.
Okay, any particular reason?
That's where the greatest artists of the world come through and bring out this fantastic future that comes out. All creativity, in my view, comes out from the comics. So that's my thought. Right.
Okay, great. And by any chance, I'm sure you are super busy working from home, but by any chance, did you get uh, time to watch Ramayana on television right now?
I did watch a few episodes, and yes, it brings me back to my childhood, Rohit. Yeah.
Excellent. So, my question there is that if you were part of Ramayana in your firm, who would you be? Would you be Ram, Hanuman, Dashrath, or someone else, and why?
I would be Hanuman because ultimately I would love to do all the things that Hanuman does. Make a big impact because that's what add the value to the whole thing. I mean, Ramayana is there because of Hanuman in a lot of ways, and yeah.
Interesting. And could you share with us name of one individual who inspires you and why?
I would say Sam Altman is one of the people who I really follow. I think his clarity of vision, his clarity of thought, his vision is something that I really associate with. A big fan of his thoughts.
So, if I'm an aspiring designer, which is the one book that you would recommend that is a must read for me?
I uh, I would read the book The Nudge, and because that has a great sense of how people perceive a product and how it's what how users interface with the product and how to build great products, how to design great products.
Okay. Slow success or fast failure? What would you prefer and why?
Fast failure, undoubtedly. It's always constant learning, and it's better to fail fast and quickly adapt and quickly learn and build a better, fantastic product on top of your failure.
That's interesting. That's quite a unique perspective. Thank you so much, Tejas, for doing this. Thank you for coming on the show. I'm sure that we'll have a lot of young minds inspired by the points that you mentioned. There's a lot to learn from your journey. And thank you so much for doing this for us.
Thank you, Rohit. This has been a great pleasure and a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much.
Hey there, we hope you enjoyed our show. Do write to us on ads@avantika.edu.in. We look forward to your opinions, feedbacks, and suggestions of speakers you would like us to host on this show. Do tune in our channel next week on Wednesday for a new story on Hubhopper or wherever you get your podcast from. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter.